There's the legend of the girl with the guy in the back of her car. There's this urban legend. There's this girl driving home from work late at night. She's driving on like a 2-lane road. She notices this car behind her that has been behind her since she left work. And the car keeps like tailgating her, getting up super close to her. He's turning on his brights every 15 seconds. He even hits the back of her car. Like,
what?
So she's terrified, right?
Yeah.
So she eventually drives to a police station, gets out of her car and just runs straight in, right? So she tells the cops, this guy has been following me, like I'm freaked out, I don't know what's going on. They go outside, ask this guy, why have you been following this girl, what's going on? And that's when he says, I was following this girl because there was a guy in the back of her car. He had a knife, and every time I would hit her car or turn on my brights, it's because he was raising up to stab her, and whenever I did it, he would duck back down. Cops were like, yeah, okay, whatever. So then they go and check the car, and they find rope, tape, and a knife in her back seat. So this guy saved her life.
If you love Hello Kitty, I'm about to ruin it. So this right here might be the most haunted Hello Kitty doll that has ever freaking existed. So it all starts when a 14-year-old girl goes to the police and she's like, help me, there's a woman trapped inside my Hello Kitty mermaid doll and it's haunting me. The police investigate. The police never really believed her until they looked inside the Hello Kitty doll and they found the decapitated head of a woman inside, which belonged to Fan Man Yi, who was a local hostess at a nightclub. And one day she was so desperate for money and drugs, she decided to steal the wallet of one of her clients, and it contained thousands of dollars inside. It was this dude's wallet. So he's a 34-year-old, and he and his henchmen decided that he was gonna just kidnap her and pimp her out to make his money back plus interest. But this bozo decides when they kidnap her that, wait a second, we could do something more fun. We could just torture her for the next month until she dies. And remember that 14-year-old girl in the beginning of the story? Yeah, that's his girlfriend. He's 34. So they torture her for a month until she dies. And when she finally does, they decide to chop her up into pieces and cook her on the stove. And they sew her decapitated head into the Hello Kitty doll. And then he gave the doll to his 14-year-old girlfriend.
If you haven't seen this photo on the internet as of late, this is just moments before 12-year-old Emma Brown took her gun and used it on her father and then herself. Last September, Emma and another 12-year-old friend devised a plan to murder Emma's family and her pets and then run away to Georgia together. Shortly after this photo, she then proceeds to shoot her father in the stomach and then run toward her driveway to take her family car to meet with her friend about 230 miles away. It's believed in this moment that Emma might have panicked and then shot herself in the process. The thing that's raised a concern is, as of right now, Emma's friend, who hasn't been publicly identified, is believed to have planned the entire ordeal. One of the biggest discussions as of late is that Emma's family had no idea how her and her friend had actually met, but she has been arrested and charged with a conspiracy to commit murder. The father did end up surviving the incident, but now conversations are being struck throughout the entire internet about whether or not parents know who their children's friends are. The police have also raised concerns and reports blaming social media for this occurrence. So the question now is, was this a preventable incident?
I was only 13 years old when I killed a 4-year-old boy. Listen up. You're going to be amazed at how crazy I am. I am Eric Smith. In 1994, I was living in the United States. I was a bit of a loner and had a hard time fitting in. People thought I was weird because of my red hair and glasses. One day, I did something unthinkable. I ran into Derek Robbie, a 4-year-old boy who was walking to the local by himself. He was a cute kid. I took him into the woods and did something crazy. I strangled him, hit him with a rock and messed up his body. I know. It's horrible. And yeah, I killed the kid. I thought it was cool. When the cops found out what I had done, they were shocked. I was only sentenced to 9 years with the possibility of parole, but it bores me. The justice system refuses to release me. It's a shame. I'd like to see you sometime. We have a lot of fun together.
How accurate are reconstruction photos of unidentified bodies? Sometimes when a body is found in a condition that can't be identified, they'll build these 3D models just based on the remains they have. So today I'm going to tell you a story and we're going to see. This is the reconstruction model of Debbie Deer Creek, a body that was found in 1984 in Deer Creek, Montana. When she was found, it was Christmas Eve, and basically a wildlife photographer just saw her leg protruding from the snow. It was believed that she was a late teen, but could be as old as 30, but there were no missing reports of women that age in the area. And she remained unidentified until 2006 when DNA evidence proved that she was Marcy Bachman. She was a teen runaway who was a victim of Wayne Nance, a serial killer that operated in Montana in the 70s and 80s. This photo is actually of the two of them, and police had this photo, but someone had called in a false tip saying that they saw her in Seattle, so when police found this photo, they assumed she was alive and didn't think that she was one of his victims. When she was found, her face was completely unrecognizable, but you can see here, without any information to go on, they still made a model that looked somewhat like her. What do you think?
Cannibal facts that'll eat at you for days. Part 2. 71-year-old Tamara Samsonova murdered and ate at least 11 people and kept a diary detailing her crimes. She's been dubbed the Granny Ripper, and this CCTV footage shows her carrying the head of one of her victims in a saucepan. In 2008, a man on a packed Greyhound bus named Vince Lee killed and beheaded another 22-year-old passenger. He proceeded to dismember and eat his body in front of the other people on the bus. In 2008, Joe Matheny was sentenced to death after murdering 8 people, turning their meat into hamburgers, and selling them to unsuspecting customers. This photo shows the survivors of the 1972 Andes plane crash. The passengers resorted to cannibalism to survive 72 days in the snow. If you look closely at the ground, you'll see a human spine picked clean next to the guy on the right. In 1928, Albert Fish met up with his friend with the intention of killing and eating him. However, when he was introduced to the guy's 10-year-old sister Grace, he decided to eat her instead. After, he sent a letter to their parents saying that she tasted sweet and tender.
I gave AIDS and hepatitis B to all my patients because I did not clean my equipment. I'm Scott Harrington, an experienced and renowned dentist. Throughout my career, I've treated thousands of patients and gained expertise in the field of dentistry. However, in 2013, my professional life took a devastating turn. Health authorities inspected my dental practice after a patient was diagnosed with hepatitis C. Shockingly, their investigation revealed multiple violations of hygiene and infection control standards within my office. I was accused of endangering the health of my patients by using unsterilized instruments, performing unsafe procedures, and employing staff who lacked proper training in hygiene practices. Consequently, thousands of patients were urged to undergo screenings for hepatitis B, hepatitis C, and HIV. This scandal led to the temporary suspension of my dental license and a lawsuit for medical negligence. I was profoundly disturbed and taken aback by these allegations, as I never intended to cause harm to my patients. After a lengthy legal battle, I eventually managed to regain my dental license and reopen my practice. If you're in need of dental care, don't hesitate to visit me. I'm here to help with all your oral health needs.
So whatever happened to Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment at the Oxford Apartments? If you don't remember, this is where Jeffrey Dahmer was eventually caught, and this is where they found all of the gruesome discoveries associated with Jeffrey Dahmer. It's absolutely eerie to look at photos of his apartment and consider what they found in there. But what happened to the building, the Oxford Apartments building? Well, obviously after investigators discovered what they did in Jeffrey's apartment, the place was stained forever. And so shortly after all this happened, the apartments, the entire complex, they were demolished. And nowadays, all that's left is this patch of grass where the apartments once stood. It's gotta be eerie living in one of these units and knowing exactly what happened right here. I actually went and filmed a whole Jeffrey Dahmer documentary where we visited the old Oxford Apartments area and investigated for paranormal activity. Let me tell you, that place is loaded with energy. At one point, using our devices, we captured what looked like bodies laying on the ground, like 3 or 4 of them. And I think at one point, using one of our devices, we literally heard the voice of Jeffrey Dahmer coming through. I'm not kidding. I know that sounds really extreme, but you have to listen to the video and just see what I'm talking about. Anyways, it's called The Ghost of Jeffrey Dahmer if you want to look it up and learn more about the Jeffrey Dahmer story. And my wife and I actually did a whole Dahmer series on our podcast, Murder in America, if you want to listen to what I'm talking about.
Okay, so I spent a lot of time reading about the dark side of Disney. And there was this period of time in the Disney parks known as the Dark Ages of Disney. It's known for being the bloodiest time in the park's history. It was a period of time from the mid-90s to the early 2000s where the park decided it wasn't going to maintain the rides anymore. They were only going to fix the rides after an accident happened, which I talk about today on the podcast, but I want to talk about a specific instance. And that's the first big disaster they had, which was the Columbia ship disaster. So on Christmas Eve 1998, this ship was coming into this dock way too fast. And mind you, at the time, staff had been complaining about the ship for a while. It needed maintenance, but the park refused to maintain it. So as the ship's coming in too fast, this employee grabs a rope and ties it to this post. And what happens is the rope gets too taut, the ship keeps moving, and it rips a big metal cleat off the boat. The cleat whips around at like hyperspeed towards the crowd and hits Luan Dawson in the face. He died on the spot from a fractured skull, and his wife had to get rushed to the hospital for horrific facial trauma. It was so bad that apparently some of the people that just saw the accident happen had to go to the hospital. But in classic Disney fashion, there was a little bit of a cover-up. So these are investigators looking at the dock right after the accident happened, which you'll notice is very clean. And that's because when they arrived, Disney executives brought them all into a conference room for 4 hours while other Disney employees cleaned up the deck to make it look spotless. It was actually a while before the park had to admit fault and settle with Dawson's family for over $25 million, it's believed. But yeah, there's a lot more to the story, so check out the episode.
This video may look like a group of friends just going out to get takeout, but trust me when I say something much more disturbing is at play. This is the devastating case of Mary Collins, a 20-year-old girl who disappeared in the early days of the COVID lockdowns. Now, due to COVID, her case didn't really get the media attention it deserves, but I do warn you the brutality of what happened to her is shocking. On the 28th of March 2020, Mary headed out the door and got into an Uber to head to a friend's house. Her friend's name was Levi Fan, this guy, and he was a high school friend of hers and a former boyfriend. Mary was also going to meet his now girlfriend, Kelly Lavery, this girl. Now, Mary was special needs and she actually had a syndrome that impaired her ability to move around, but she was lonely. And so when Lavi and Kelly asked her to go hang out with them, she thought they were just being friendly. Now, it's important to note that when she got there was another guy present. This guy, James Solorano. Now, all of them sort of went out to go get sushi, and that was the video you saw posted by Levy. You can see them walking into his apartment. You can see them all walking into the apartment. But sadly, Mary would never walk out. Now, Mary's family knew she'd gone out to meet some friends. They were immediately concerned when they did not hear from her. They sent her multiple messages and called her a few times. And because of her special needs, they were concerned. Now, Mary actually lived with her grandmother, Mia Alderman. And when Mary didn't come home, Mia went straight to Levy's apartment and banged on his door. Now, the couple, Kelly and Levy, they opened the door and told Mia that Mary had left after they had all eaten sushi. But that did not make sense to Mia. She knew that Mary would have needed help getting home. So Mia went straight to the police and filed a missing person report. Now, due to the circumstances around the case, the missing persons unit were quite slow to respond. But Mia knew that Mary was still in that apartment, and so she continued to turn up at Levy's door. At one stage, the couple even let her in to let her search the apartment, but they did not let her go into the back rooms. All they let her do was do a quick scan. But Mia was simply convinced. It got so bad that the missing person unit actually told Mia that she had to stop harassing Levy and Kelly, that they were doing their own investigation. After some time, the case finally gets the break it so desperately needed. Uploading part 2 now.
Throughout the 1950s in Southern California, there's a surge of young women called starlets who move to Hollywood in search of stardom. They want to become actresses and models and will do whatever it takes to solidify themselves as a true celebrity. However, this journey isn't easy, and many of these women are forced to take several odd jobs like questionable photography shoots, and you can guess that when you go into this line of work, you encounter several dangerous individuals along the way. This series of photographs are the work of photographer Harvey Glattman, later dubbed the Glamour Girl Slayer. October 10th, 1927. Harvey's born in the Bronx to a Jewish family, and they later decide to move to Denver, Colorado. As a young kid, he exhibits various behaviors that many would consider to be antisocial, and his parents often catch him experimenting sexually. See, all his life he's been involved with the Boy Scouts, and it's there that he develops an obsession with rope. This builds more and more until one day, at just 12 years old, Harvey's mother walks in on him in the bathroom pleasuring himself with a rope tied tightly around his neck. His parents find this unusual, concerning even, so they go to their physician and ask if it's normal, and he basically says, yeah, he's just a kid, he'll get over it eventually. However, as Harvey grows older, these sadomasochistic behaviors get worse, with him getting more sexual gratification from inflicting pain on others. In 1957, Harvey decides to move to LA, where he wants to pursue photography and supports this dream working on the side as a TV repairman. He joins a photography club and finds that many women there are willing to do freelance photography shoots in order to support their dreams of modeling or becoming actresses. On August 1st, 1957, one of these women, 19-year-old Judy Ann Dole, agrees to do a photo shoot with Harvey for just $20. This is actually pretty good money at the time, and Harvey seems nice enough. He's actually a bit of a nerd to Judy with these really thick black glasses and his pointy ears. Harvey then invites Judy over to his apartment where he tells her that these photos are for a detective magazine, so they're gonna need to do some shots where she's bound and gagged. Judy really needs the money, and she hasn't done a lot of photography shoots in the past, so she willingly lets Harvey tie a rope around her wrists, knees, and ankles and gag her. But this just isn't enough for Harvey. He then pulls out a gun, telling Judy it's not real, and says that he wants to point it at her so he can get the shot that he really wants. You can see from the photos that she isn't quite terrified, but does still look uncomfortable given that she's putting herself in this vulnerable of a situation. He then proceeds to assault her, taking pictures as he does it, and Harvey Glattman loses his virginity at the age of 29. After he's done, he forces Judy to cuddle with him on the couch and watch TV for several hours. Eventually, she requests to use the bathroom, promising that she's not going to try and escape, and it's at this moment Harvey realizes she must die. He then proceeds to tie her up, throw her in his car, and drive to an isolated desert in San Bernardino Valley. And when they get there, Harvey ties a rope around Judy's neck until she can't breathe anymore and buries her body in the sand. The sheriff's department proceeds to put out wanted listings for the killing, and Harvey fears that the other models in Los Angeles have seen it, so he thinks of a new plan to pursue his victims. He decides to join what's called a Lonely Hearts Club. If you've never heard of one of these before, it's basically like Tinder, but in real life. And single men and women would go to a club to meet one another, and one of these individuals is 24-year-old Shirley Ann Bridgeford. On March 9th, 1958, her and Harvey meet, and it's there that they decide to go out dancing. However, a few minutes into the drive, Shirley quickly notices that they're not going in the right direction, and within a few hours, she's tied up, photographed, and assaulted numerous times by Harvey before he takes her into the desert and kills her. In October 1958, 28-year-old Lorraine Vigil answers one of Harvey's ads in the newspaper and agrees to do a modeling gig for him. Things seem to be fairly normal at first, but as Lorraine is sitting in his car, she notices that they're heading in the opposite direction of Hollywood and are taking an exit to actually leave the city. She starts asking over and over again, what are we doing? Where are we going? Until Harvey eventually pulls off to the side of the road, saying that they have a flat tire. He acts like he's getting out of the car to go fix it, but instead pulls out a gun, pointing it directly at Lorraine. She panics, quickly grabs the barrel, and starts fighting back, something Harvey is not used to, making him quite nervous. He tells her that if she just does what he says, he's not going to hurt her, but Lorraine holds on for dear life until all of a sudden, the gun goes off. The bullet scrapes past her leg, but Lorraine powers through, bites Harvey's wrist, takes the gun, and points it right at him. And it's at this time that a highway patrol officer pulls right past them. The man gets out of his car, assumes the two are a couple, and Lorraine is physically assaulting Harvey. However, as he gets closer, he quickly realizes that this is definitely not the case and immediately takes the two into custody. There he confesses to 3 murders and leads the police to a toolbox that contains various photographs of his victims. In 1958, Harvey Glattman is sentenced on 2 counts of first-degree murder, and the following year is executed in a gas chamber.